I want to make you feel jealous of the tropics for a minute before I talk about what's happening in colder climates. Perennial staple crops, these are shovel-ready crops. These are crops that are developed and are ready and can feed people now on a massive scale around the tropics. The air potato on the top left, this is a vine that grows potatoes, they're actually yams, on the vine above ground. The yield of selected varieties is 19 tons per hectare, which is about, let's say, 8 tons per acre, with no tillage, year after year after year. That's phenomenal, and they taste, some varieties taste very good. Some are horribly weedy and taste bitter and bad. You want to get the right one. We've got peach palm down here. Nutritionally speaking, it's a sweet potato that grows on a tree. Was a huge staple crop in Central America and Northern South America until the Spanish came and cut them all down because they couldn't subjugate a people whose staple crop grew on trees. Moringa is an absolutely phenomenal plant from India and Africa. It's an incredibly high protein vegetable. The pods you can eat, the leaves you can eat, the seeds purify water. Absolutely unbelievable tree, vegetable tree. Breadfruit, of course, is a really, really fantastic vegetable that grows on trees. Starchy staple. You bake them properly and they taste like fresh baked bread. And they grow on a tree. And there are varieties available now. There's a germplasm collection in Hawaii where you can have them fruiting every month of the year if you have the right mix of varieties. Incredible. The sago palm, a multi-stemmed palm. So it has, basically it's coppice, right? It has lots of stems. You cut one every once in a while when it's at the right stage. The entire trunk is full of starch. 25 tons per hectare of starch every year once you get up and running for 7 years. And it grows in salty, wet, tropical areas, which we're going to have a lot more of. Mesquite is a fantastic nitrogen-fixing tree. There's different species all over the world. The pods are absolutely phenomenal. They're very delicious. They're very sweet, taste like honey, nutritionally comparable to wheat, and the yields are comparable to wheat or better as well. Tropical species yield up to 10 tons per hectare. The more temperate ones, like ones that grow in Arizona and New Mexico, are yielding 4 tons per hectare without any breeding work at all. Very, very interesting. And then the last one is the chacha fruto. This is a tree bean from the Andes that you can see that's one bean, and those are the seeds inside. Those are edible beans that grow on a tree. That fixes nitrogen. It's a living fat. It's absolutely super cool. So we can't grow any of those things. A lot of the world can, and if we were to put $25 billion into planting these things around the tropics, that would make a really, really, really big difference. And I can give you a list of 100 more plants to work with, easy too. Okay, so for cold climates, what have we got? Mostly our systems are under development. And I just want to be totally straight up about that. The Land Institute has been doing this work for, I don't know, 20, 30 years now. They're working to develop a domesticated prairie with grains and beans and, well, whatever, pulses, and oilseed crops that are all perennial and grow together in a polyculture that mimics the prairie ecosystem. Super cool. They've been making excellent progress with very little money. They have one of their crops, intermediate wheatgrass, is now ready for small-scale commercial trials. So they have been cranking out some material, and they're just absolute visionaries. And if we had put a fraction of the money that was put into this whole biofuel disaster into these guys, we would be there in 5 years. But we didn't. There is also really interesting work being done around the world on perennial wheat and perennial rice in particular. There's a lot of people working on perennial rice in China right now. The wild ancestor of rice is a perennial. So it's not a hard crop to do. In Australia, again, they've been working on trying to find out that they know they need perennial grains because they've just trashed their cotton and growing annuals. Their soils are really poor. They have terrible rainfall issues, undependable rainfall issues. So they're 20, 30, 40 years out ahead of where we are in terms of using up the continent. So what they're doing is they grow perennial grains. It's not economical with the yields they're getting to just grow the grains. So they grow the grains and then they graze sheep on it. And that works. They're making money. With the very underdeveloped perennial wheats that we have now. So that's very encouraging. Woody agriculture, this is my absolute favorite. I went on a trip with Keith over here to their place last year for a workshop, and the Badgerset Research Corporation is working on developing a completely new model for agriculture they call woody agriculture. Their goal is to see Iowa covered with chestnuts and hazelnuts instead of corn and soybeans. Chestnut is basically, nutritionally, it's corn, and hazelnut is basically nutritionally soybeans. So their model is long, long rows. They're doing crazy breeding work. Long, long rows, double rows, say 2 feet apart, with the hazels and chestnuts like 18 or 24 inches apart in the rows, going as far as the eye can see across Iowa, but which would be too close, right? This is for machine harvest, and the idea is that every 10 years you cut the trees down to the ground, and you do that on a rotation. So that way, you don't have to go out and prune, which takes forever. You just cut the whole thing down, you got a biofuel crop, biomass crop, boom. Then it resprouts and it grows again. So you divide it up, farm in 3 bits, and you do that. And you have a really, really lovely perennial food production system. Hazelnuts can live for 500 years if they're regularly composted. That is sustainable agriculture. And this is just a hint of some of their breeding work. Chestnuts usually have 3 to 4 nuts per burr. This one has 7, and they have some with 9. They say we haven't domesticated any tree crops yet, because they're growing them from seed. And their goal is to get a hazelnut that grows on the cob, like corn on the cob. They are really, really out there. And I'll talk about their breeding project in one of the workshops tomorrow. They're